So I'm here with Beth Burdine, now board member and foster parent at All God's Children. She has a huge history, and I've actually known her for years. But how did you end up at All God's Children?
About 13 or 14 years ago, I guess about 14 years ago, I wanted to do something for All God's Children. I'd heard about it and started volunteering. And then actually volunteered quite a bit, got some churches involved, that kind of thing, the churches that I was attending at the time. And Pam Smith looked at me one day and she said, if you're going to be here all the time, you might as well just be on the payroll. So then I started working as a house mom at All God's Children, then became a foster parent. And a few years ago, I was asked to be on the board of directors.
So, as I've known you for years now from a distance and up close, you are exceptionally gifted, whether or not you want to accept that, with
Thank you.
teenagers. What is it that draws you to them so much?
I guess teen moms have always been my passion, which is probably why I was drawn to All God's Children. The stories that come from foster care when you have teenagers and then they have children and then those kids end up in foster care, it's that generational curse, I guess is the right word. That cycle that there is a opportunity to break if given the right circumstances. And I think that sometimes starts later in life. And I think for a lot of the teen moms, that's what happened. They were in foster care. They have trauma themselves, and then unfortunately got passed on to their kids.
So, All God's Children was residential at one point.
It was.
And you worked with a lot of the moms there
I
and
did.
then transitioned to having moms in your home. So, what is the craziest off the wall story you have out of all of those years?
There's been a lot of funny stuff that's happened when the house was still open. The house is something that was just special. And if you worked there, it was special. The property was special. You know, I remember working it in the evenings and stuff. And when you would leave at night, there was just a piece that was just different there than it was anywhere else. And I think the girls realized that piece there too. There's crazy stories everywhere. I think as foster parents, you get asked some of the most insane things. I've been asked if I want real kids. Not really sure what they think my kids are, but different things like that, just off the chain questions. And I don't think it comes from a place of like hatred but it's just an unknowing, just almost like an ignorance that is blissful, I guess, for some people. But it's just, I think there's always different things that come in, and you have to approach every question a little bit different, everything that pops up. I think when you have teenagers, though, it's where the entertainment definitely starts.
I agree, and I want to add, because you were talking about like the peace over the house, and that's something that I continue to hear about the house.
Crazy. It's crazy.
I was there for 2.5 years on third shift, like 3 to 4 nights a week. And you are right. There's this absolute sense of peace of like, I can think of looking out the top windows at 5 a.m. watching the sunrise, and there's horses in the background. And you have the most chaotic situations in the world going on in that building.
Right.
And there's absolute peace. And as you say that about them being real kids, and I think people don't always grasp that. These are real teenagers who happen to have kids. But I remember one resident who would get up at 5 a.m. every Saturday so she could make breakfast with me. She just wanted one-on-one time with me.
It's so simple, the simple everyday things that you don't realize, like you had as a kid. Grandma makes cookies with you. Mom teaches you how to make chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
Dad takes you to cut a Christmas tree. Like those things that we took for granted because that's what your typical childhood is. And they don't have those typical childhoods. So somebody to sit here and say, here, scramble the eggs, we'll show you how to make an omelet. It's just like a brand new experience. It's like you have a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid, but yet you're doing the things that you do with your 4-year-old for the first time. And it's like their eyes are open for this new experience and this new family that they've never got to experience, whether that be in the house or in an actual foster home or wherever.
I agree. I think a lot of times in any helping field, not just foster care itself, there's this idea of needing to fix someone. And sometimes it's simply being present, sitting side by side, and rewriting their story.
We hear a lot about broken homes, broken stories, broken childhoods, but these kids aren't broke. And that's one of the things I think that we hear a lot about. And it's kind of like there's a couple of things that I hate to hear, like they're just buzzwords for me. And one of them is, like they're broken and we're going to repair them. No, they're not. That's who they are. And they need to feel loved and whole, but that's who they are. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing for you to fix. It's just something for you to love. And it's just like also the term resilient. Children are resilient. Well, shame on us. Shame on us if these kids need to be resilient because of the choices that adults are making in their lives.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that we should ever say, oh, well, they'll bounce back because they're resilient. No, they shouldn't have to be resilient. That's not their job at 3 years old, 4 years old, to be able to be moved from home to home to home and all this kind of stuff. No, shame on us as a community if we force these kids to be resilient.
I agree. And I'm shifting gears a little bit to about birth parents, but I'm speaking from the standpoint of I'm a child of teenage parents and they raised me. And one of the things I would go back to those communities and say is I wish they had just supported us as a whole.
Absolutely.
That they had recognized my parents wanted to and were capable, but they didn't always get the support they needed as teenagers.
100%.
And that's what I loved about AGC is like they were supporting the moms. So what would you say to people about birth parents and supporting the whole unit to bring them back together?
I think foster care has this false narrative that it is a foster parent versus a bio parent, that it is foster parents are baby snatchers and bio parents are evil. And I think there is nothing farther from the truth. Are there situations where kids were removed and needed to be? 100%? Yes. Are there situations where reunification is not in the best interest of anybody? Absolutely. But my daughter's bio mom comes and has dinner at our table at least once every couple of weeks. We meet for holidays. We meet for birthdays. She's my friend. We're friends. It doesn't have to be one versus the other. When you look at it like there's a competition, then that makes it a game. And these kids are not a game. It's not a game. Nobody's going to win. There has to be a winner in a game, and that it's not a game because the only person that needs to win is that baby, and that family. And I think the best thing that we can do is when there is the opportunity, when there are healthy boundaries in place, when there are parents who love their kids but just can't be what their kids need. You can never have two people love your kids. I'm never going to turn somebody away from loving my child. My kids are adopted. They're both parents in the right scenario, in the right situation, with the right boundaries, with the right mental health and health in place. They are welcome in my child's lives, and they always will be. Like I said, my daughter's bio mom is one of my closest friends. Love that girl. She's amazing. She did what was best for her daughter, and she knew that. She's now a wonderful mom of her own little girl. And, our girls play together. They're not old enough to really understand the dynamic of who they are to each other genetically yet. But when the time comes, she and I will sit down and we will have that conversation with our daughter together because that's what's in the best interest of the kid. It's not a game. It's not a competition. Nobody's trying to steal somebody else's kid. Nobody's trying to, attack one side or the other. It doesn't have to be that way, and it should be that way.
Yeah, it's as you're talking, it's just reminding me we're a faith-based agency. It's like it's an opportunity to show Christ's love not just to a foster child, but to the parent
To their parents.
that is involved. And you and a couple other people I've heard of a lot of positive things about the relationships with the birth parents.
Absolutely.
And I come from a world too of I worked in an infant adoption for a while, and the most beautiful results were always when the birth parents were given the opportunity to be involved in the ways they were capable of loving.
Absolutely. There's nothing to me that would be more unhealthy than just setting a kid down at 15, 16 years old and going, oh, by the way, you're adopted. What? Like,
Yeah.
talk about trauma. Let's just traumatize a kid over and over again.
Yeah.
No. I mean, my kids will tell you, they came out of someone else's belly and they were adopted. They remember the courthouse. My son especially, he remembers the courthouse. We've had visits and stuff with bio parents when it's safe and in the best interest of everybody. And, it doesn't always work out like that. It can't always be like that. But when it can, I think it's healthy. And I think it's growth for everybody. I mean, I think it's good for me. I definitely think it's good for the kids and the bio parents.
I agree. I would still say some of the biggest life lessons I've learned have been at the hands of foster children mostly, or teenagers, where they've said the most profound things that I've never thought of because I've never had to be in this situation
Absolutely.
to survive the way they've had to.
Absolutely. There's no one completely grasps grace and mercy quite like a child.
Yeah.
They just have no they don't see anything else. It's just like, oh, everybody's good. I'm going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Everybody's good until there's some reason that I can't trust them. And, they, nobody loves quite like a kid.
I agree. And you talked about trust. How do you build that trust with the bio parents and with the child?
Between me and the bio parent?
Yeah.
For us, I don't know, I have had both of my children that are adopted. I have been able to know the birth moms before, in different scenarios. And so it's been a little bit easier for us. But one thing that we've just always said is, here's what I'm comfortable with. Here are the boundaries. This is what I need. This is how they will refer to people. This is what they will call folks, and for the most part, we've never had any real issues. There have been times that in other situations with my son that we've had to just, this is not a good time right now. Let's get you some help and then we'll move forward. But I think if you go into it in an open and just say, hey, listen, we both love this little kid, love this little girl, we love this little boy. We want what's best for this child. I know that you love her. It's not the best situation, but this is how we're going to move forward. And I think as long as you're open and with communication and have those boundaries and everybody respects and understands them, I'm sure there are situations where it won't work because, maybe a parent's not willing, a bio parent's not willing to do that. And maybe a foster parent's not comfortable with it. But I think if you can get to a place where you are comfortable with it as a foster parent and can say, I know my place. I know my parental place in this family. These are my children, but I want to engage in and give these parents an opportunity to be part of their lives, for the betterment of their child down the road and for their mental health. I think it's the best plan when it's handled properly.
I agree. And as you say, that's something I've always appreciated about you that you've touched on within that is I do believe one of the keys is honesty. It's just bluntness and complete honesty. As someone who works with the foster parents specifically, I will say you're good. That honesty is always the best policy. It's like, why do we need to hide it? Better to bring it out in the open and handle it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you won't get anywhere if you're like, oh yeah, we can do this, this, and this, and then avoid somebody's phone call. No, and that's not good for the kids either. And one of the things that you do have to deal with is broken promises because your kid, in a lot of cases, will encounter those broken promises at some point. And it's hard for them because, while they're in foster care and they're supposed to be doing visits and someone doesn't show up. And, it's okay to have a conversation with that bio parent and say, listen, you messed up. Like, you can't promise this kid you're going to be there and then not show up.
Yeah.
And it's nothing wrong with saying that. I mean, if you're going to do visits, you need to be here, you need to be on time, and you need to spend time with this kid. Put your phone in your pocket or I'll hold it for you. This is your time to visit. It's not your time to take pictures for your Instagram.
Yeah.
And right or
I
wrong.
think that applies to everyone in this society.
Right or wrong, I am a huge proponent when it comes to visits. I don't do phones. If you want to spend time with your kid, spend time with your kid.
Yeah.
but this is not social hour, so you can pretend like you are involved.
I agree. And I do really think that applies to a lot of situations in
Absolutely.
life right now.
For sure.
As you've talked about all this, I hear the thread of community actually, and I want to touch on something unique is you are a single woman doing foster care, and
Absolutely.
people don't always realize they can still do it. What advice would you give to somebody who's like single, who's contemplating foster care?
Um, to me, it's just one less person to argue with. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, it's the only person that I have to agree with is myself on how to raise these kids. So I think it's better. I don't know. That's probably not the right answer, but
I don't think there is a right answer.
that's how
It's your story.
that's how I see it. I'm like, hey, we might not agree if I was married. Gracious, he might not do it to suit me. Like, no, that's not how we're going to raise these kids. No, I think a lot of people are honestly afraid to be a single parent, but I don't know. Maybe my kids are just awesome, but I love our little family, and it works for us. I do know that people do have concerns. Well, can I? Well, what if I have this? I don't. I think as a single parent, you are a little bit more cautious as what you accept. I predominantly started out doing teenage moms because that's where my heart was and that's what I wanted to do. Now that I have a preteen son, I probably will not take teenage girls for the next few years, just because we don't invite problems. But I think people just have to, be willing and accept, like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And I don't see it as a challenge. I think you do have to have community. I have a great village. Most of my family's right here. I have a lot of extended family. The kids have amazing grandparents, amazing aunts and uncles. You have your village. Sometimes that village is, best friends that have been friends for 30 years, 40 years. Yeah. Sometimes it's amazing parents that become fabulous grandparents. Sometimes it's, people that you meet in your foster community. But I think you build your village by what works for you and what works for your kids, and then you just go from there.
So I'm going to ask you one final question here. With that, we were actually having a conversation this morning. There's a lot of people that are leery of teenagers, and you're talking so openly about accepting them. And this morning, we were actually having a conversation about how teenagers can be easier in certain ways while harder than others. So why should someone consider a teenager?
I think teenagers have a bad rap.
Yeah.
Teenagers have a bad rap. I don't. People look at teenagers in foster care like, oh, they've been bounced so many times. They must be terrible. They must have trauma. They must have history. They must have all these things. And that's not always the case. Is it sometimes? Sure. I mean, I've had kids that had been in multiple placements, and they did have a bad rap, but they're still teenagers. They're still kids. Their brains aren't formed. They're still making the same dumb decisions that your natural 16-year-old's going to make.
Yeah.
There's nothing terrifying to me about it other than what's terrifying with teenagers in general. They're going to drive cars and make poor choices and, probably try terrible things like cigarettes and alcohol. Well, so are most 16-year-olds and 17 and 18-year-olds. It's not a uniqueness to a foster child. Teenagers are teenagers. They do the same things every teenager does. And they try the same things that every teenager does. And they make the same terrible choices like we made as teenagers.
I do agree. And I think there's a deep capacity to love there too, that you just might not see the way a 3-year-old might run up to you and hug you.
Absolutely. The first time that a teenager gives you a hug, it's very different than when a toddler does. Toddlers are naturally trusting and they want that affection. And a teenager, when they give you a hug, it's because they needed it. And it comes from a very different place. Toddlers are like excited to see you when they give you hugs. Teenagers are like, this is the worst day of my life and I need somebody to support me. I need somebody to be there. And I think that's kind of the difference. We've talked a lot in the past, you and I have, because when you work nights with teenagers at the house, they talk in the middle of the night. That's their moment. And at 2 a.m. when they knock on your door and they're like, hey, can I ask you something? And you're like, sure, because I have my best conversations in the middle of the night, you know, but they truly do. And they're open, and they couldn't sleep because something was on their mind, and everybody else in the house is asleep except you and them. And they're safe enough, and that's their comfort. And they're like, you know what? I can communicate, and I can be real at this moment, and somebody's going to be there for me. And I think that when you get to that point where that teenager trusts you enough to have that conversation, or that hug, or, hey, can you help me do this? Like, you've reached a milestone, you know?
I agree. And I feel like it's the beauty of getting to watch them become something.
Absolutely.
Like you get to hear, oh, I'm interested in this, or interested in this person even, and you get to watch that start to blossom.
And they finally are not just surviving, but they're thriving.
Yep.
You know, and there's a huge difference in that. You know, there's this survival mentality where I'm tough, and I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm not going to get attached, and I'm just going to make it through, and I'm going to turn 18. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know, picking up their little brother, you know, and they're swinging him on the, you know, Bennett, when he was younger, there was always teenage moms in our home, and they were like the best big sisters in the world. And he'll tell you today, I have the coolest big sisters. You know, he loves his big sisters that are now on their own, living on their own. You know, some of them married, you know, other kids and that kind of stuff, but they were his sisters for a long time. And to see that bond, I think, is the coolest thing. One of the things that we don't talk about, and I'm getting a little bit off topic, but one of the things that I don't think we talk about enough is like these unsung heroes of the kids, the siblings. The siblings can make such a huge impact. You know, people are always like, well, I don't know that I want my biological kids, and I worry about them. Those people, that's your right hand, because they bond with the kids so much, and they just see, oh, there's a kid in our house. This is cool. They don't see, and they shouldn't, but they're not privy to the stories behind these kids. They're not privy to, sometimes we aren't either, but they're not privy to the stories. They're not privy to the visits. They're not privy to those things. All they see is, there's another kid living in my house, and I have a brother, I have a sister, I have a new sibling. And it's so honest and real and raw, because it's just, hey, let's go play. Will you swing me? Will you color with me? They don't see, oh, well, they come from a hard place and we need to walk softly. No, they're just like, hey, let's go. Instant, you know, we're good.
We recently had some kiddos come into placement with that similar story. We have no idea what the background fully was, and then they met some other kids, and we watched, and we're like, oh, you can talk. Oh, you can play.
Absolutely.
Oh, you can do that. And it was
do
because
all those things.
Other kids showed up.
Yep. Yeah. We had one of mine was forever. I mean, didn't cry, no tears, just kind of sit on the floor for a long time. And my son would lay down and just bring a new toy. And then all of a sudden we started, like, you know, playing with the toys and hitting the toys. And then he became her person. And then it was just on. Like, if he went to his room to change clothes, she was like crawling up to the door, like smacking the door. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's her safety instant, because it's on my level. It's a little person. I can relate to this little person, you know. It's cute.
That.
It's awesome to watch them.
That is really awesome. I'm not going to keep you going all day because I feel like we could. But is there any final thoughts you would want to share as we wrap up?
One thing, and I thought about this quite a bit. I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Finding Nemo?
Yeah.
Right. And the whole thing, the one line that everybody knows from Finding Nemo is keep on swimming. And I think I was watching something. I work for the fire department, and we were talking one day about a drowning that had occurred. And we're just talking, and if you've ever saw it or watched it on TV or whatever, or even like yourself felt like you were drowning, you fight. You are the only person that you think is going to get you out of the water, like, and you fight. And I think foster care is like that. Those kids are drowning and they're fighting. And so they come into your home, and you're like, I'm trying to help. Why are you fighting me? They're drowning. Yeah. They're drowning. And they want somebody to get in the water. and swim. And I think that's probably the best like analogy that I can, to give to somebody is all they want is somebody to get in that water. And if foster parents don't keep swimming, if more people do not get in the water, the kids are drowned.
Yeah.
And we can't, there's a lot of times that like, we talk about, there's so many kids in foster care and there's not a lot of homes and there's not enough of this, and there's not enough of that. And it's true, there's not. But the kids are still falling in the water.
Yeah.
That part's not slowing down.
Yeah.
But nobody's getting in the water with them. And I think that's the hardest thing that, if you can envision that, and these kids are sinking and they're hitting and hitting and hitting. And that's, sometimes it's figuratively and sometimes it's literally.
Yeah.
When they come in your home, they are scared and they are doing everything they can because they've been so independent and had to be their own savior for so long that they do resist and they do fight. But when the time comes that they realize that somebody's going to jump in, it's a whole new ballgame for them and for, I think, the foster parent to realize, you trust me, and the kid to realize somebody's always going to save me. And I think as long as we keep pulling them out, then eventually they stop fighting and they realize I can swim too, and then you hope that maybe 20 years from now that they're in the water for somebody else.
Yeah. I love that because that's our theme of the next couple months is fight to foster. So absolutely fits.
There you go. Didn't even know.
I figured that was perfect. And I would add to that for people to realize, like, I found out today we filled our last home available right now. So you're right. And the referrals are not going to stop coming for me. And I'm going to hit reject every time because there's not nearly enough families.
Right. Yeah, the numbers in the state of Kentucky alone are just horrendous. I don't even know a word. And there's not enough homes, and most homes have multiple placements. And eventually foster parents run out of bedrooms too.
Yeah.
They run out of space, and it's hard because you want to keep saying sure, absolutely. Yeah. But the bottom line is at some point, other people have to get in the water too.
I agree.
Somebody else has to swim.
Yeah. So it can become a foster family.
Absolutely. Jump in the pool. It's cold sometimes, but it's okay.
There's room for everyone.
Right. We'll throw you a life jacket.
Yeah, there we go. A couple of them.